Chet Holmgren, and I'm down to dunk.
This is AJ Mitchell, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Alex Crusoe, and I'm down to dunk.
It's like baby bottle pop. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is Adam Flagler, and I'm down to dunk.
Hey, it's Isaiah Hartenstein, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Kason Wallace, and I'm down to dunk.
I can't spell Lucas. Hey, how do you spell Lucas? How do you spell Lucas?
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
This is Nikola Topic, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Dylan Jones, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Isaiah Joe, and I'm down to dunk.
And there's probably like 50 to 75 Beanie Babies.
Give me like your top 3 Pokemon.
Brother, I can't even name.
This is Jay Will, and I'm down to dunk.
Sometimes the way his brain works is, it leaves a lot to be desired.
This is Kenrich Williams, and I'm down to dunk.
Charmander.
Yeah.
Charmander. Or you're more of a Charmeleon guy.
Charmeleon.
This is Shai FIRE, and I'm down to dunk.
Schlecht. You know what it means? Yeah.
That means like bad.
It means bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's me.
Well, it was a good interview, so it wasn't bad.
J-Dub, year 3, and I'm down to dunk for the 3rd time. Thank you.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Wednesdays is my good friend, Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
What's up, Andrew?
So, a little news. I didn't think that we'd be getting any news. I thought we'd have to make up everything that we talked about today. But no, yesterday, Chris Haynes of the Haynes Briefs dropped some news that Shai is letting go of Tad Fouché and Wasserman, and from what I understand, Joe Smith has really been the guy that has taken the reins for Shai from Wasserman over the last little bit of time. And so he is going to represent himself. He's still going to have representation for sponsorship deals and just other ways for him to make money. But when it comes to his NBA contract, he is going to be handling that himself. And so we don't know exactly why this happened. I think you can make a lot of assumptions as to why one would do this. The first being that he's about to make $80 million a year, and why give up 10% of that whenever you could just have it, So to me, that's kind of where my brain goes first.
Well, not just that, but what is there to negotiate? There's nothing to negotiate. He's Supermax eligible. He's probably going to win the MVP. He's just entering his prime. He is the ideal candidate has no conditioning issues. Shout out, Luke.
Yeah. No conditioning issues.
It's really
fair.
Yeah.
True.
There's really nothing. There's no flags, no red flags, no any other color flags when it comes to Shai. So it's just obvious, I'm sure, from his perspective, I'm going to get the Supermax. I'm obviously going to get every single penny. And so when there's no negotiation really needed in his mind, I would totally understand, because that's a huge chunk of money. I mean, it sucks for his agents because this would be, I assume, their biggest payday of their career if they were still with him. And it would only have been a few months away.
Because it will be the biggest contract handed out ever.
Ever. Yeah. So I'm assuming that would have been pretty nice for them.
It would have been cool.
But at the same time, from Shai's perspective, if there's nothing to negotiate, why am I just willingly giving away tens of millions of dollars to someone who doesn't really necessarily have to do anything? So if that is the reason, you understand it. Who knows if there's anything else going on, but that seems like the most obvious explanation. Yeah. And so I don't know, it's not really worth speculating about anything else. I feel like every time this happens, you start getting people talking about, oh my gosh, he must be leaving. He must be wanting to get out of Dodge. But now that we've seen this play out with multiple players over the years, I feel like more often than not, it has nothing to do with that. And most of the players that do change representation end up staying with their teams. So it's just completely separate from that. But I think as fans, when we see, oh my gosh, they're changing representation, that must mean they want to do something else. It must be connected to free agency in some way. But I think similar to many past cases, I think it's just going to, I think it will end up meaning nothing from the fan perspective. It will impact our lives in zero ways.
Yeah, I think that's the most likely scenario is that he will sign the extension that is given to him, and you wouldn't have known that either he had an agent or he didn't,
Yeah.
to get this deal done, So I think that is the most likely scenario for all of this. So
and it is an interesting angle that Thad was Russ's agent, although
yeah, they have
Russ
a great
also,
relationship. Yeah,
but Russ did leave Thad as well. I think that was back in like 2022.
Yeah.
So no longer the agent for Russ. But for Thunder fans, that was like, oh, that's kind of neat that Russ and Shai both had the same agent while they were in OKC. That's about the extent of my interest in like the agent game.
Yeah. And like, yeah, I wouldn't, again, like, this is the most likely scenario is that this is just Shai saying, you know what? I'm eligible for the Supermax. I believe the Thunder will offer it to me. Why do I need to give 10% to somebody else?
Yeah.
It also just screams Shai has a wife who's like, hey, why are you giving 10% of this to this guy?
I mean, it is true. Like if you had a friend that was in that position, how would you not be asking, like, come on, dude, why are you doing this?
Like, why do you
What's the
why do you
point?
need this representation? Like, you need somebody to help you with schedule and endorsement deals and like all of that. Like, absolutely. Like, you need somebody to help you with that because you have a lot going on. You just need somebody to handle all of that. Like, you're not going to handle all of that. But when it comes to just negotiating your NBA salary, I mean, he's one of the very few players that in this new CBA environment that is a no-brainer, like Supermax, like give him whatever he wants guy.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of teams are going to have to grapple with that fact, even guys that are eligible for the Supermax. Like, not all of them are going to deserve it. Not all of them are going to get it. And there need to be negotiations with agents and things like that with some players because they're not going to get what they want. I mean, that potentially was going to happen in Dallas where they were not going to give Luka everything that they want. So I just think like that is like a really interesting wrinkle because before it was like, yeah, whoever qualifies for it's just going to get it, but like this new CBA is tricky and it makes you have to really make some decisions on what you want to do and how you want to build your team and who you're going to give. I mean, $80 million a year is so much money. And to be giving that to somebody that you maybe don't believe can help you win a championship, well, they might start moving on from those guys. I mean, there's already murmurs about Memphis potentially moving on from Ja Morant.
I know that, it is really getting crazy. I mean, it's true. Shai is like, for all the great things about Shai, just add one more thing to the list, which is that you don't even question the Supermax. Like, you don't even feel wishy-washy in any way. It's just like, if this is the system that's set up, he clearly meets all the eligibility criteria that you would want in addition to the actual eligibility criteria. Like, this is the ideal candidate for this. And that's really nice because I do think everything that happened with Luka really did upend this whole Supermax conversation because prior to Shai, you would have said the same about Luka. I mean, even with the conditioning stuff and all that, like, you would have said the exact same thing about Luka. This is a obvious, maybe even more than Shai, just because he's made the finals, and you would have felt like this is the obvious guy you would give a Supermax to. And when Dallas didn't, and when every single report since then has come out basically saying that was the reason that they didn't want to commit to this guy long term, if you're any other team, how would you not begin to question any Supermax decisions you're making if a team's not willing to do that for Luka? But in Shai's case, you gotta do it. You gotta do it.
Yeah. Who are the players that you just think are the no-brainer Supermax guys today? Because it's not as obvious as it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, like down the road, Wemby is like an obvious one. He will be a supermax guy.
Yeah, Wemby, Shea, Jokic.
Shea, Jokic. Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, obvious one.
Okay. Giannis.
Yeah, Giannis.
That's 5. Obviously, Luka's not an obvious one, which just feels wrong. Feels wrong, but if a team is not willing to do it, I mean, now we're talking like Devin Booker. Is he an obvious one? Like I don't know that Devin Booker is like a number one guy, like like the guy.
Before the Luka thing, I would have said like, yeah, obviously the Suns would give Devin Booker the supermax, and I'm sure they still would because of who the owner is. But yeah. Now it's like, I don't know if he is a quote unquote supermax guy. It's kind of how we used to talk about like max players. Like, I don't know if he's a max guy. And the argument would always be, well, if that's what the argument, or if that's what the market will pay you, then he's a max guy. That's your answer right there.
Yeah. Paolo Banchero, is he an obvious supermax player? I feel like he's a little bit on the Devin Booker level where you're like, like maybe he's got to make some leaps to get there.
Yeah. It's so funny. I'm on Hoops Hype, just scrolling down the player salaries.
Yeah.
And man, you hit OG Anunoby way sooner than you would think. Good Lord. He's 31.
It's a huge contract.
He's going to be making $45 million in 4 seasons, 27, 28. I guess it's 3 seasons. 45 million. OG Anunoby. Wow.
It's a lot. That's a whole lot. I mean, I'm just even thinking about like upcoming guys like Cade. Is Cade an obvious supermax guy?
To be honest, if healthy, I do think Chet is in that realm of guys who would get supermax.
Chet.
Like, if he was consistently healthy, he would have made an all-star game already this year. He would have been all NBA this year. So in many ways, like that reset the clock on those, because I do think he would have become supermax eligible pretty quickly. How well he was playing at the beginning of the season, and if he comes back and is back to that level and for like 2 seasons in a row, like he will be supermax eligible. He is so good.
Yeah, no doubt. Huh? That's interesting. I think it's really just like 5 guys then that are just like no-brainers in the NBA, with Shea being one of them.
Yeah, and it's going to end up being no-brainers, and then teams that are just put in really bad positions that probably are teams that aren't able to get free agents normally. And those are the teams that are going to have to decide. I mean, it's like the Bradley Beal contract back in the day. Even like there was a point where De'Aaron Fox was going to be supermax eligible. And Kings obviously traded him. Now, I don't think he was that contract that they didn't want to give him this summer wasn't going to be the supermax. It was going to be just the max. But yeah, it's going to be very expensive coming up for OKC. We still have like probably 2 more years before it really gets crazy. But as soon as those Chet and J-Dub contracts hit, their cap sheet is going to be crazy. Shea's going to be making $80 million. I wonder what the rookie scale max will be. I mean, we'll know this summer. I mean, the figure's probably already out there for this summer.
Yeah, because they're both going to get it.
Yeah.
I'll have to see if I can find it. But yeah, that's and they've been planning for it. Like they haven't paid the tax since they had PG here in town. Like it's been a while. Since they've paid the tax, and so I think that they are definitely able and willing to pay what they need to, and they've been saving during those years, because the most expensive thing about an NBA team is player salary. And so they've kept those salaries low. And that's why it was so important to like not pay the tax this year and like make a trade at the deadline or whatever, even over the offseason, to just like be careful with what you spend, because like you can, if you get into the tax now, it's just going to limit how long you feel like you can keep this team together. And that's also like why it's so important to hit on these guys in the draft, because you're going to have to make hard decisions too.
This may seem unrelated, but this is why the Dylan Jones minutes don't bother me, because like you have to find out now. You have to. Like, when else are you going to find out about Dylan Jones? So if you can get him some minutes while your team is just destroying the league, and you can find him some minutes in games, I do think it's valuable, because as of right now, they're going to have 3 picks in the upcoming draft. I'm sure they'll like not end up having 3, but they'll probably have 1 or 2. And if they feel by the end of this year that, oh man, I just don't know if Dylan Jones is going to work out, like at least they'll be able to base that on something, rather than like feeling forced that they have to trade away a pick just to keep Dylan Jones another year and like continue to try to figure stuff out. So that's why I'm fine with them playing these guys even when they're bad on a really good team, because you have to find out, and that is so valuable if you do find out. If you do find out, like in the case with AJ, that you found a guy, that you have a guy that you can like lock in cheap money for the next 4 years, like that is the most valuable thing for the Thunder right now. And that's what each of those draft picks, the goal has to be. Like I mean, we've seen it with Milwaukee, where they got to this point money wise, but then didn't have the picks to like funnel, like to rotate through guys.
Didn't have the picks,
so
didn't have any young guys. Yeah.
And then they're making bad picks, whether it's like Beauchamp or the guy they just traded from last year's draft, AJ Johnson. Is that his name? AJ Johnson. And like when you miss and you only have 1 pick, it's like, man, we're just done. We need that contract so bad. And so OKC has so many shots at this, which is great. But they also have to make these decisions a lot quicker. There's no Darius Baisley take off where he what am I trying to say? Runway. That's it. Runway, where he can just like hang out, have fun. We can sort of halfway talk ourselves into Bays for like 3 seasons. Like that's never going to happen again until like Shai is not on this team.
Yeah. And part of that is that they're just so good that like there's no time. There's I mean, like Topic is going to have to be good. Like Topic is going to have. He has to be good right away.
You look at who they've drafted over the past few years. Like Dub, I know he's a lottery pick, but good like right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Chet obviously missed a year, but was good right out of the gate. Kaysen was good right out of the gate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now AJ has been good immediately. Like you have to be one of those guys. And if you're not, like the team's going to give you some leeway. I mean, Dylan Jones has probably played more minutes than AJ Johnson. You know, he's probably played more minutes than a couple other first round picks. So he's getting somewhat of a chance. Obviously, it's not the chance that, Baisley would have gotten back in the day. But yeah, man, you have to be so good right from the jump. I actually want to see how many minutes he has played. He's played 322. So he's played more than AJ Johnson.
Yeah.
Devin Carter.
Yeah, AJ's played. Guess how? Do you see how many AJ's played?
He's played 70.
Total. Played 70 total. He played 44 minutes for Milwaukee, and he's played 26 minutes for Washington.
Dylan Jones played more than Terrence Shannon Jr., who just destroyed us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I mean, it is good to just figure out what you've got. In my opinion, I think they figured it out. I don't necessarily need to continue to do it. You have this stretch coming up where I think you should get ready for the playoffs, and it's like, no. We need to continue to figure out if we have something in Dylan Jones. No, in my opinion, I think that time is done.
Okay, so you feel like you've learned enough.
Yeah, I think so. Have you?
Isn't it crazy though? No, I don't disagree, but like, if that's how you feel, you kind of have to admit like this is probably the end. Because if they're bringing in more rookies, AJ coming back, like when is he going to get another opportunity like this? When is he going to get the chance to play 322 minutes, which is what he's played so far for this team that may win like 65 to 67 games? Like it's probably not going to happen. Like this is probably it.
Yeah.
If you feel like you've seen enough, which is crazy, but at least we know there are guys like AJ Mitchell who will just be good right out of the gate, and we'll know, and everything will make sense instantly. But I don't disagree. It just feels weird to say that because we went through like 3 seasons where like every single guy we were breaking them down. Oh, like trying to find anything that would make us believe that there might be something in the future. Now we see a guy for 300 minutes. Like, I've seen enough. I'm done.
Yeah, that's good.
Over. Which is honestly probably true in like 90% of cases. Like we knew about Darius Baisley. Like we knew about a lot of those guys. Like even someone like Hami who like had moments. Like we knew, like deep down.
Yeah, we knew.
Hearts, like this, he's probably not going to be a part of an 8-man rotation of a 67 win team. It's probably not going to be the case.
Yeah, and like I mean, Dylan's 23. It's not like he's 20.
Yeah,
and it's like he still has like so much development to happen with Dylan Jones. You know, he's older than Chet. So, you know, I mean, like he's older than Jay Will. He's a lot older than Oos. He's a lot older than Kaysen and Topic. I think that those are the guys that you can give a little bit more leeway to, because it's like, these guys are way young and it takes time to figure out the league. Most guys that are 23 in the league, like you find out pretty quick if they've got it or not.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty rare that it takes like a long time for the guys that are 23 and older to figure it out. I mean, AJ is about the same age as like Chet and those guys, but like you knew it like so fast. It's like, oh yeah, he's got it. You know,
right.
There's no question that he's got it. And I think
and a big part of it,
part
of it is that even though AJ had a much larger role in college, a lot of his skills, like what he was being asked to do in college, he's being asked to do with the Thunder, just in a smaller role in terms of like leading an offense, being good off ball, scoring, being a good passer. But Dylan Jones, it feels like he was such a different player in college. Like he was the alpha, like just like the world revolving around him at Weber State in terms of their offense. And so to go from that to try to now fit into some role on this Thunder team, I mean, it's legitimately hard. And who knows if they keep him or not, but you hope for his sake, like if he can find a team where he can explore more of that. Because I don't see how that happens on the Thunder. Like he needs to be as good as AJ is directing an offense to kind of be able to do some of those skills that he had in college, to be able to explore them. Like we just don't have the time otherwise. So he gets fit into this other kind of, role player role, which I think makes sense. But man, that's a tough transition to do in like 1 year.
Yeah, because I mean, like you look at what they could do, because I mean, they gave Carlson that 2-way, and he's somebody that I think that they would like to keep around. So then it's like, okay, well, then where does the roster spot come from for next year? Is like the question they have to start asking yourself. And like Dylan's saving grace, 1 could be Oos, and then 2 could be the fact that the Thunder may only have 1 pick in this draft. Like if Philly keeps their pick, the Thunder don't get that one.
Yeah.
If Miami is in the lottery, the Thunder don't get that one. And then they're down to just the Clippers pick, which right now is, I think, at 22. So like there's a chance that they only have 1 pick, which is not the worst thing in the world. Like the more you hear about this draft, like it's not the worst thing in the world to have more picks next year than it is this year. And it also just gives you a little bit more time. Next year's draft is supposed to be a lot better than this one as far as like depth of the draft goes. And so like only having the 22nd pick would not be the worst thing in the world. You get an unprotected Miami pick. You get a top 4 protected Philly pick for next year. This is probably the year to hit on that Philly pick if you get it, obviously, because next year, I mean, who knows? Philly could be just as bad next year.
Who knows, Andrew?
Who knows? But like it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to only have that one pick, and then you only need one roster spot, and then it's like, okay, do they want to continue to keep around Dylan, or do they want to keep Oos? Like then to me, it's like a coin flip for what you want to do. And so like we're not saying like he's definitively gone this summer. Like we don't know that, but I think that if this draft ends up hitting like this, then there's a chance that Dylan's on the team next year. That's all I'm saying.
No, it's more just a recognition that like the decisions, this is what happens when you have all these picks and you have so many good players on your team. This is the inevitable conclusion that eventually you are going to have to make tough decisions. And they haven't really had to make that many tough decisions. I mean, the toughest decision so far has probably been the Trey Mann decision. But even by that point, we kind of recognize that, like, man, if this is going to happen, it's probably not going to happen in OKC. And so, moving on from a first-year guy, or moving on even from someone like Oos, who was a lottery pick just a few years ago, is still like in his early 20s. Like, we're starting to get to the point where they're actually having to make some tough decisions. I saw the Ringer did like an expansion draft thing. And so I hadn't thought about the expansion draft in a while, but we're starting to get to the point where it's getting a little juicy for the Thunder, depending on what year it happens in. I think obviously they haven't announced anything, but ideally it's going to happen in a year where like Lou Dort is an expiring contract. That would be great, because that just takes a name off the board that you don't have to protect. Because as of right now, you would have to protect him. But if it's in a couple of years when he's an expiring, you wouldn't have to. So that means you get to protect an extra guy. But yeah, I mean, it was down to where like you couldn't protect Isaiah Joe as of right now. Like that's the level of player we're already talking about, which is crazy.
Well, and two, the Thunder can offer draft compensation in place of a player too.
Yeah, maybe that's what they'll end up using all these picks for, just to be able to keep their own players.
I mean, that's possible. You need to have it, like you need to have like those, you need to have the capital to keep the guys that you want to keep.
Yeah.
And like, if you're this team in Las Vegas, like, wouldn't you just rather have a draft pick than Isaiah Joe?
If you're like a normal owner, I would say yes. If you're like Matt Ishbia, if you're a Matt Ishbia type owner, I could see one of those guys just wanting to get as many good players as possible and trying to immediately win the NBA Finals, because that seems like something Matt Ishbia would do. Andrew's vanished. Andrew's gone. He's dropped off the line, which means I'm going to go to the comments and I'm going to answer questions. First one, Tanner Stack. Would you rather Miami pick, not convey, and it turns unprotected next year? I would say definitely, because you're talking about a pick with not really that much juice, because the best it could be is 15. In a draft that some people are like, after a certain amount, it's not great. Or next year, just completely unprotected. And yeah, Miami will probably be fine. They will probably stabilize the way they always have. At worst, they'll probably be what they are right now, which is just kind of hanging around the play-in range. But if there's one injury, if one thing goes bad, they're 25-28 right now, losers of 4 in a row. And if you look at the teams below them, you could make a guess that the Sixers are going to want to win next year, obviously. I could see Brooklyn wanting to win as soon as next year. It feels like they're wanting to win now, winners of 3 in a row. Toronto seems like a team that definitely is going to want to win next year. And then Charlotte and Washington, definitely not Washington, maybe Charlotte. So there's definitely teams below Miami next year who would want to win and be ahead of Miami. So yeah, if it's unprotected next year, that's great. Taylor Venus, is the unprotected Mavs 28 pick our most valuable pick right now? I was just looking at our full list of future draft picks. I would say, now, isn't that one correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. Isn't that one a swap in 28? No, it is just their pick. Oh yeah, no, it is a swap. Yeah, OKC has the right to swap. It's 2028 first round pick for Dallas is 2028 unprotected. Probably. I mean, I'm looking at the other ones I would talk about would be like that 29 first from Denver, which is only top 5 protected. But of course, that's not unprotected, and we assume Jokic will still be there. But that is, that's 4 seasons from now, and it's top 5 protected in 29 and 30. If it's not conveyed by then, it's a second. That Dallas swap is pretty good. I don't know. I mean, the 27 Clippers pick, like maybe they'll kind of like I think that's Kawhi's last season under his current contract. So that's potentially a juicy pick. But yeah, I think the 28 Dallas might be Taylor Venus. There's actually 2 Denver picks. Taylor Venus. There's a 27 Denver and a 29 Denver. We get both of them, and they're both top 5 protected. So yeah, I would say the 27 Clippers or that 28 Dallas. And any others that you would throw in there?
Dallas. 28 Dallas is probably the one for me. And these have kind of evolved through time. Like I think that we really thought that, after the J-Dub Clippers pick, that it was like, oh, the best is yet to come for these Clippers picks. And it's like, well, maybe not. Like they've just been competent enough.
Yeah.
I really thought this year was going to be the year, as did everybody else going into this season with Kawhi's injury and, PG just like walking. So.
Yeah, Gabi brings up a good point, which is that for the Clippers pick, that is Kawhi's last year, but they barely have anything else on the books that year. It's like $20 million for Zubac, which is great. Derek Jones for $10 million. But James Harden is theoretically off the books at that point. I mean, maybe they resign him. That's when Norm Powell's deal comes off the books. Yeah. So that could potentially be a free agency year for them. And I feel like a lot of people are gearing up for that summer of 26.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's maybe that one is not as juicy as we once thought.
Yeah.
And I don't have mallet finger. I broke my finger.
He does not have mallet finger.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bummer.
Some evil forces are trying to take out me and Andrew. And all of the down to dunkers. One by one.
No.
Yeah.
I know.
If you don't follow me on Blue Sky, I went to Joshua Tree, a beautiful national park. I was in Palm Springs. I want to go there. Within 5 minutes of getting there, I slipped and hit my head against a rock and came up with just blood everywhere. Didn't realize I had also broken my finger at the time. So yeah, someone's out to get us, Andrew. I think Luke is probably next. Makes sense. Taylor and Jay, they got to watch their back. Someone's coming for us.
They're
Luke,
taking us down one by one.
Luke thinks that this might be viral marketing for the new Final Destination movie, which is coming out this spring.
Which would be, wow.
I'd be happy to be part of that viral marketing if that's in fact. That would be
just like a picture of me just like laying, like grabbing my knee, like you just bloodied at Joshua Tree. Oh gosh. Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll discuss some storylines for the rest of the season. We'll be right back. And we're back after that quick break. So the Thunder have 28 games left in what has been a magical season so far. They are the clear favorites in the West. Some people think they're the clear favorites to win the whole thing, which I think is fair when you look at the numbers and when you watch this team play basketball together. I think that that's a fair assessment. But like, let's talk about the things that we're looking for down the stretch. One, I would like to see them just get more chemistry with that first unit and like figure out, like, is it the SGA, Dort, J-Dub, Chet, Hartenstein? Is that it? Is like that's what we're going with in these playoff series? And I know that they want to be able to have different lineups to throw out there. Like I get that. But also, like I think just establishing like that starting lineup as you go into the playoffs, I think is important. I think we make that assumption, but we also have not seen this team with one of the guys they've started a lot this season, Cason Wallace. I think it's probably pretty unlikely that it's Cason that stays in the starting lineup, but they have started him in 32 of the 46 games that he's played this season. It's like I can't completely remove that as a scenario. They want to have an element of surprise to them, so maybe they do switch it up from day to day. But like that, the chemistry of specifically the Chet Hartenstein lineup on the offensive end is something that I want to see more. Defensively, like they're already dominant. Like Chet's already dominant, and so I don't have any worries there. But as they play these 28 games, like I hope they get a lot of time with those guys there as Chet kind of gets back into game shape.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the West, is there any team where you wouldn't want to start Hartenstein and Chet, where you would prefer starting smaller? Because we know they're honestly, good like both ways.
Yeah. The only team that I would question it with, maybe even a little bit, is the Lakers.
Okay.
Just because like they have a small ball lineup. Like their best lineup is a small ball lineup, period. The end.
Yeah.
And I think the Thunder could just throw one out there that's way better. But still, I would probably want to start bigger with them because some of the guys that they're going to throw out there, you don't even have to worry about guarding, honestly. Like Dorian Finney-Smith's not breaking off the bounce. Like he's corner three only kind of guy. And so like there's no worries there with guys like that. And with Vanderbilt, who's basically just a guy who scores inside and will shoot a corner three. So like I don't see a lot of concerns with that Lakers team. I think the Thunder match up with them pretty great. Other than that,
shout out to the Thunder for playing so many different lineups. I only had to scroll down to like the top 10 lineups to already see the new starting lineup. They've only played 32 minutes together. They're already like a top 10 most played lineup for the Thunder.
That's a Mark Daigneault team, man. Like that's just the way that he operates. It's pretty wild, but it's true. I mean, are you on Cleaning the Glass or are you on NBA.com?
No, I'm just on NBA.com.
Yeah. I mean, they just don't. Yeah. The totals. Yeah. It's funny because like it's that starting lineup with Cason that's played 263 minutes. And the second most played lineup is 67 minutes.
Yeah, the starting lineup will be the second most played lineup within a week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it will take no time because everything else is just, I mean, the second most played lineup, it's Shea, Dort, Wiggins, J-Dub, Ihart, and it's 67 minutes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think that you could even have guessed that. But it's also pretty wild. And last time I checked, like basically all these lineups are positive. And when have the net rating the Thunder do, it's like pretty obvious. But it's still pretty wild that like almost everything they throw out there works. Like this is interesting, but this is only, again, like the sample size is so low that it's like, okay, what happened? What game was this? Who were they playing? In 11 games, a span of 37 minutes. So just like little bits here and there. They played Hartenstein, Shea, Isaiah Joe, J-Dub, and Cason Wallace, and it was a -22. But it's also like, again, it's 37 minutes. Like, what are we even supposed to do with that? Like that'd be a conversation I'd love to have with Mark. Is like, you have all these little lineups that have played, like this one it's 5 games in 19 minutes. So like under 4 minutes per game.
Yeah.
They had this lineup that produced at a very high level. Shea, Dort, Isaiah Joe, J-Dub, Cason Wallace, like that small ball lineup. But like, again, who was it? What happened in these minutes? Like, did somebody just get hot and they just pummeled somebody? Like, I don't really know what to do with that kind of data. And so I'd just be interested to see like, okay, what does your data look like on your side? Because like, it can't be this. Like, it can't be this where you're just like, in like 3 minutes in this game, it really worked.
Yeah, I think
I would just love to see how they compile it and like how they organize all of it with the amount of data that they have here.
I think Partnow has said that it takes 500 minutes for 2-man lineup to stabilize, and that for like a 5-man lineup, it's like over 1,500 or something. And even then, it's not that very much data. So yeah, like basically all lineup data that you look at is kind of worthless.
Yeah.
Except, I mean, some of that 2-man data is kind of interesting because you can see kind of which pairings work, and you can get up to 500 minutes pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So those
are you looking at the 2-man right now?
No, I can be.
Okay.
With a click of a
okay. Well,
button.
don't do it. Don't do it. I was
don't.
going to give you. Don't do it. Okay. Who's the best 2-man lineup that has played 500 minutes or more for the Thunder this season?
I would guess Shai and Shai.
You're right about Shai.
Yeah.
Shai, which is
That one's
pretty obvious.
Pretty obvious. So in the past, I would have said Isaiah Joe, but I question whether he is still that guy with Shai because he got off to kind of this slower start this season.
Oh wait, actually, it's not Shai.
It's not Shai.
It's actually
best
not
2-man
Shai.
lineup.
Second, it's actually the second best 2-man lineup is Shai and Joe. Plus 21.1. Plus 21.1.
Okay.
The very best lineup is plus 21.9. It's played 510 minutes together.
Hartenstein.
Mm-mm.
Kaysen's definitely in it.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Dort. Okay. Dort and somebody.
Oh gosh, this is actually great. It's a shirt that I want to make.
Dort and Dub.
A shirt that I want to make. Nope.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds like a shirt too.
No, this is the best 2-man lineup. Should be a shirt, and it should just be 2 words.
Oh, Dort and Crusoe.
Nope.
What?
Nope.
Who is it?
Isaiah Joe, and it's just a shirt that says Joe Dort.
Joe Dort. That's pretty good. Man, so Isaiah Joe, even with
a movie that I don't know that many people in the chat have seen. Let us know if you have seen the movie Joe Dirt, and if you would wear the shirt that says Joe Dort, plus 21.9 below it.
Shout out to Isaiah Joe. I mean, he was obviously the on-off king last year.
Yeah,
but I thought with the slow start, maybe he wouldn't still be there. But it sounds like he is still amazing for on-offs. And I know why, because I saw that analysis at the end of last season. It was like, which players have the most gravity in the NBA? And it was all guys you would think of, like guys like Steph Curry or Damian Lillard. And Isaiah Joe was on that list. It was like a list of like 10 guys. He was on that list.
Yeah.
And it is one of the things about this team. Like, yeah, even when they're a really good shooting team overall, like they were last season, how many of those guys actually have gravity? And I still think today it's probably still Isaiah Joe when you're talking like real gravity, like where the opponents have to worry about where he is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess that makes sense. Wow, shout out to Isaiah Joe. Shout
out to Joe Dort.
Joe Dort.
Lucas Follett in the chat says Joe Dort, but it's just a picture of K. Rich's mullet.
Just to make it ultra confusing.
Just like, what is this? It's like the ultimate down to dunk shirt. Oh, shout out to Joe Dort. All right, I've got to go. Cut this one a little bit early. I've got emergencies going on about my house just with this freezing cold weather.
It's 3 degrees out there. I saw.
It's awful, man. These are the
crazy.
worst days. The worst days in Oklahoma. Hope everybody's doing great. Appreciate you guys tuning in on this Wednesday. Basketball will be back tonight. If you're super into Lakers Hornets, this is your night because that's all that's happening. But then the league is back tomorrow night. Tons of games. Thunder play.
Dalton Connect revenge. Mark Williams revenge.
I know. Isn't that
night.
It's kind of great. It's kind of great how that worked out. So the Thunder play Utah on Friday in Utah, and then they are on the road in Minnesota on the 23rd, and then in OKC on the 24th, both against Minnesota. One of 2 times this happens with the team. They do play Denver like this, but it's back-to-back at home for the Thunder, which I think is pretty wild. But this is home road, back-to-back with the same team. I think is very interesting. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll talk to you guys again on Friday.